This was my 7th year after transmigrating into this world, and my 15th year being a corporate slave. By now, I'd long forgotten what this damn novel was even about. The only two things I still remembered were, first, the original story was an explicit BL novel, and second, the male lead was my boss, Vincent Hale. As for me, I was just a miserable doctor trapped in a brutal 24/7 work schedule. Thankfully, in just 3 more months, I'd finally be free from it all. I'd been waiting for the male lead's destined Omega to appear, but I still couldn't see any future where I actually got to retire. No one knew who had added too much of the suppressant medication, but Vincent Hale suddenly fell into a frenzied heat. His pheromones exploded without warning, and every Omega nearby collapsed on the spot. The entire venue descended into chaos. Taking advantage of the confusion, I hoisted 2 unlucky Omegas off the floor, both too weak to move, and bolted for the exit. Wife, don't run. Amid the groans and screams around us came Vincent Hale's heartbroken shout. I pretended not to hear it. No one was catching me today. After safely getting the 2 Omegas out, I immediately rushed to a hotel outside the area, booked a room, and checked in with my luggage. Seriously, I'd been living at Vincent Hale's place this whole time, working 24 hours a day while eating and sleeping under the same roof as him. If I didn't escape now, I'd end up becoming part of their weird little play. Since I finally had a few days off work, I planned to look for a new apartment and move out once Vincent Hale's heat was over. The private gossip group for the lab suddenly exploded with new drama. Breaking news: violent CEO Vincent Hale turns obedient while searching for his wife. The group chat was in complete chaos. Everyone had their own theories, and I pieced together the truth from countless scattered messages. Apparently, that day, Vincent Hale had searched the entire venue over and over again for his wife, even though he never found the person. But the weirdest part was that afterward, he insisted his wife was waiting for him at home. I swear, in these 7 years, I had never seen another human being living in that villa besides him and me. Still, I did know there was a basement in Vincent Hale's villa. I'd never stepped inside before, but I'd secretly seen him enter it once. Could he really be hiding someone there? Driven by curiosity and a bit of conscience, I bought a ticket back to City A overnight. I quietly unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air carried a strange, indescribable scent. Then I looked up properly, and immediately wished I could gouge my own eyes out. The once spotless room was now a complete disaster. T-shirts, sweaters, down jackets, clothes Vincent Hale rarely wore, had all been dragged out and piled messily across the bed. Several empty bottles of suppressants were scattered across the floor. Vincent Hale was buried in the middle of that mountain of clothes and my little blanket, clutching one of the white dress shirts tightly against his chest. As for my poor blanket, it had clearly suffered greatly. Hearing the noise, Vincent Hale slowly lifted his gaze toward me. A faint blush colored his pale face. His eyes were hazy, his breathing uneven, beautiful enough to rival the top courtesan described in the novel itself. Meanwhile, I had completely turned to stone. Vincent Hale's voice was soft, the end of his words lifting slightly like feathers brushing against my heart. Wife, you finally came back. I've been really good. I listened to everything my wife said. I didn't make trouble at all. I just kept waiting for you. Wife, where are you going now? Why are you closing the door? I'm still in my sensitive period. Don't leave, don't leave. Who was he calling that? Me? Wife? What kind of madness was this? I turned and bolted out the door. I locked it behind me. I ran for my life. It was completely useless. Vincent Hale transformed from a boneless little white rabbit into a combat-ready Arctic wolf in an instant. With one kick, he blasted open the barely functional door. Moving at terrifying speed, he caught me right before my hand could reach the front entrance and wrapped an iron grip around my waist. The next second, I crashed straight into his arms. He held me tightly against him, lowering his head to breathe in the scent near my neck over and over again. It was the instinctive behavior of an alpha searching for the place to leave a mark on their partner. Even through the thin fabric between us, I could feel the burning heat of his body. His warm breaths brushed against my ear, making my own breathing turn uneven. Wife, you're so good. Don't think about leaving. I'll be sad if you do. Your pheromones? Wife, give me just a little, please. Don't be angry. I'll get scared. Where was I supposed to get pheromones from? I struggled to turn my head and tried reasoning with him. Let go of me first. The shift in his expression happened in an instant. The haze in Vincent Hale's eyes vanished, his pupils narrowing into sharp, beast-like slits filled with barely restrained excitement. At last, the hunter had found his prey. Found it. Your scent is right here. Then a fierce, burning kiss crashed down on me. It felt as though he wanted to steal every last breath from my lungs, forcefully deepening the kiss until my mind went blank and my resistance completely crumbled. Wife, soft and sweet, so delicious. By the time I regained my senses, my clothes were already in complete disarray. Before I could even react, Vincent Hale scooped me into his arms and carried me into my old room. Together, we fell onto the large bed buried beneath scattered clothes. Don't mess around. I tried pushing him away. The distance between us was far too dangerous, but he only tightened his arms around me. Wife, I'm sick. Don't push me away. It's so hot. This feels strange. It's lasted for days already. What should I do? Just as I tried to get up carefully, he suddenly pulled me back down. Vincent Hale let out a shaky breath. Wife, you really are a miracle doctor. I immediately regretted existing. Still trying to negotiate, I forced myself to stay calm. Let go first, I'll help you. You won't run away? I won't run. Only then did he reluctantly loosen his grip, though the longing in his eyes never faded. I guided him patiently, and he followed surprisingly obediently. I held him close and gently soothed his back, guiding him to calm down little by little. He seemed especially fond of physical contact, the tips of his ears faintly red. In our line of work, the worst possible mistake was falling for the client, and unfortunately, once someone learned something driven by pure instinct, they picked it up frighteningly fast. Wife, you're amazing. Shut up. I turned away immediately, too embarrassed to look at him. Behind me, Vincent Hale suddenly laughed softly. Wife, I think I understand now. Anyone who had watched nature documentaries knew one thing. Never turn your back on a predator while it was hunting. An alpha in heat was no exception. The next moment, I was dragged right back into his embrace before I could escape again, forced to listen helplessly as he repeated every single thing I had just taught him. I learned it. Somewhere far away from our notice, the pheromone monitoring system had already completely gone haywire. I woke up in the hospital. An entire week had already passed since that chaotic night. My teacher stood beside the bed, looking at me with an unusually complicated expression. There was sympathy, disappointment, and the same shock I'd once felt after discovering I was apparently Vincent Hale's wife. Where's Vincent Hale? The moment I spoke, I realized my voice sounded terribly hoarse. My teacher pointed toward the door. He's here, standing outside, too scared to come in. I froze. Why was he even here? Wasn't this the part where the assistant slammed a check onto my face and bought out our one-night accident with money? Damn it. I was counting on that compensation to retire early. Why was he suddenly acting so pure-hearted? Outside the room, hidden behind the closed door, Vincent Hale clutched my medical report while mentally preparing himself. As though he had finally made up his mind, he pushed the door open and walked in. You're awake? He said quietly. I came to take you home. My teacher shot me a teasing look before immediately escaping back to the lab, abandoning me to my fate. I quickly spoke first. Wait, I have something to say too. Go ahead. Vincent Hale looked at me with complete sincerity and attention. It honestly felt like if I asked for the stars, he'd try to bring them down for me. It's not a big deal, I said carefully. I want to move out. The atmosphere changed instantly. The light in Vincent Hale's eyes dimmed slightly, turning unreadable. Still, he forced a calm smile onto his face. Where do you want to move? I still have several empty properties. Once you recover, I'll take you to pick one. What? I gestured wildly, trying to explain that I had absolutely no interest in becoming part of some destined Alpha and Omega romance storyline. No, I mean moving out of your house. Otherwise, when you end up with your Omega, I'll just be awkwardly in the way. And about that night, financial compensation is enough. I'll treat it as a workplace injury. Vincent Hale's face immediately turned pale. I don't have an Omega, he argued hurriedly. And I never will. You don't need to move out. It'll make future work inconvenient. Excuse me? Was there still any justice left in this world? I'd practically suffered a workplace injury and still had to go back to work? I exploded in frustration. Inconvenient for what? What if this happens again someday? Who knows whether you'll suddenly lose control again? I stopped myself just in time from blurting out something even more embarrassing. Vincent Hale looked at me seriously. It won't happen again, I promise. Then, after a pause, he added softly, Please don't leave, wife. He wrapped his arms around me in an attempt to stop me from going. From the outside, it probably looked overbearing and possessive. But anyone except Vincent Hale himself could clearly see the helplessness hidden underneath it. The feeling was strangely familiar, like being trapped by an overly clingy giant cat. Watching him rub against my palm with such a pitiful expression, my mind suddenly filled with 100 dangerous thoughts. I immediately slapped myself mentally. Absolutely not. That was borderline criminal behavior. I wanted early retirement, not prison time. I reached out and touched his forehead. You're still sick, aren't you? You don't even have a fever, so why are you saying such ridiculous things? I still think moving out is the best option. The very next second, Vincent Hale somehow produced a pair of handcuffs and a chain from who knows where. His eyes turned red with grievance as he looked at me pitifully. Please don't force me. I instantly snatched back the hand that had touched him and wrapped myself tightly in the blanket without another word. Could he take a closer look at who was actually being threatened here? Just then, my teacher returned to the hospital room. The moment the door opened, she looked like a savior descending from heaven. Mr. Hale, leave this to me. The lab still needs another blood test from you. And in the very next second, the savior became a devil. Had my beloved teacher been bribed by Vincent Hale? Thank you, Vincent Hale said miserably. He's already planning to abandon me and the child. I really don't know what to do anymore. I couldn't hold back anymore. What child? Don't make things up. Vincent Hale looked devastated as he headed toward the lab. You don't want me anymore, and you don't want Jue either, even though he already calls you Mom. Then he fled the scene immediately after dropping that bombshell. This man was seriously ill. First, he mistook me for his wife. Now he was treating a male cat as his son. Apparently, he'd even mistaken the cat's meow for Mom. I turned weakly toward my teacher. Teacher, it's a cat. You know I can't give birth, right? She nodded thoughtfully. Well, technically, betas aren't completely. No, absolutely not. As a pure-blood Earth male, if I ever ended up giving birth, I would simply die on the spot. Exhausted, I leaned back against the hospital bed and asked, So why did you send him away this time? To warn you, she replied calmly. I forgot to mention earlier, you're now psychologically recognized as his partner. At minimum, you need to stay with him for another 2 months. His pheromones are unstable right now, and if he stays anxious for too long, he could fall into a prolonged sensitive period. That wouldn't be good. Then her gaze flicked downward briefly before she added meaningfully, For you either. I was so horrified that I immediately started doing discrete pelvic exercises under the blanket. I didn't move out in the end, but after a long round of negotiations, I did at least manage to move rooms. Unfortunately, that meant sharing the master bedroom and the same bed with Vincent Hale. Stop crowding me. I stared at the enormous empty space behind him on the bed, then at the increasingly endangered state of my own personal space, and immediately grew irritated. Looking reluctant, Vincent Hale shifted exactly 5 centimeters away before putting on a pitiful expression. Okay. Sorry, he muttered softly. You know I'm still sick. So, could you be a little nicer to me? At least don't stay too far away. I shoved at him helplessly. I admit you have a point, but you're literally pressing against me right now. Go calm down in the bathroom or something. You'll come with me? No, I'm sleepy. Hurry up. Vincent Hale got out of bed. Vincent Hale walked 3 steps and looked back twice. Vincent Hale opened the bathroom door and continued staring at me. Why are you leaving the door open while showering? So I can see you. The scene was far too visually dangerous for my mental health. I immediately yanked the blanket over myself and wrapped up tightly like a stuffed sandwich roll. If I couldn't see it, it didn't exist. Unfortunately, the sounds coming from the bathroom completely destroyed any remaining sleepiness I had. I wanted to complain. Desperately. Who made this much noise in the middle of the night? When Vincent Hale finally returned to bed and lifted the blanket, I glared at him resentfully. He immediately covered my eyes with one hand. Wife, don't look at me like that, he whispered. You'll make me want another cold shower. I surrendered on the spot. When are you going to recover already? You really want me to get better quickly? A muffled sound came from under the blanket. Then you should touch me more, he said seriously. The doctor said physical affection from a partner helps comfort an alpha during a sensitive period. It stabilizes pheromones and eases anxiety. I'm very anxious right now. I sighed quietly to myself. Then, after hesitating for a moment, I slowly reached out and rested my hand against his arm. The instant I touched him, I heard him suck in a sharp breath above me. Like this? His voice carried obvious anticipation. Can I adjust our position a little? Fine. One arm wrapped around me, pulling me upward gently. My head slipped out from under the blanket before he carefully guided it against his shoulder. Can you smell it? He asked softly. Gardenias. What? I sniffed seriously, but all I could smell was mint body wash. My pheromones, Vincent Hale explained quietly. Do they smell nice, wife? Could I really tell him I smelled absolutely nothing? He looked like he might genuinely cry. So I answered vaguely, yeah, pretty nice. Unfortunately, he actually did look wounded. You're lying, he accused sadly. Did you cultivate yourself into emotional detachment or something? How can you feel absolutely nothing toward my pheromones? Well, excuse me for being a normal Earth human who hadn't evolved that feature yet. They said physical closeness helped reduce anxiety, but honestly, Vincent Hale seemed even more anxious now. After all, according to the books, if partners couldn't sense each other's scent, it felt almost like they couldn't truly feel the other person's presence at all. Stop overthinking. Finally giving in completely, I wrapped myself around him like an octopus, holding onto him tightly. Like this, I mumbled quietly. Even without pheromones, you can still tell I'm here. I was woken up by my cat's son. It was time to feed him. Still half asleep, I moved like a robot running on autopilot, fully intending to roll off the bed and wake myself up through pain. I had only rolled halfway when a hand caught me and pushed me back. Where are you going? To feed my son. You sleep a little longer. I'll do it. Since my son apparently had a stepfather willing to take care of him, this biological father could continue resting peacefully. So I immediately lay back down. Honestly, Vincent Hale became surprisingly obedient during the lingering aftermath of his sensitive period. He stopped going to the company, which also meant I no longer had to suffer through early mornings. My current lifestyle of freeloading shamelessly and waiting to die comfortably was incredibly satisfying. Although Vincent Hale had very little self-control when it came to clinginess, he was at least polite about it. Whenever I told him to stop, he actually listened. And somehow, after only a few days, he'd become strangely skilled at taking care of people too. Now I was openly occupying his study room, lazily scrolling through my phone while Vincent Hale sat nearby attending an international business meeting. The moment the doorbell rang, I shot upright and rushed to answer it. My legs had gone numb from sitting too long anyway. But standing outside wasn't food delivery. Instead, it was an extremely delicate and adorable Omega dragging a huge suitcase behind him. Next to him stood Vincent Hale's mother, personally bringing the Omega inside. Anyone who had read the original novel could immediately figure it out. This Omega was probably the protagonist. The Omega stared directly at me, making me sweat nervously. Vincent Hale's mother pulled me aside and whispered, Alex, Lin Shi is the partner our family chose for Vincent Hale. Later, help me tell Vincent Hale to take good care of him. All right, then. I'll leave you young people to get along. Excuse me? When I turned back around, Lin Shi was gently petting my cat son in his arms. I remember you, he said softly. You were the beta who saved me that day. Thank you so much. If you hadn't helped me back then, I might have died there. His voice trembled as he spoke. I froze in horror. So that's why the plot felt wrong. I had accidentally carried off the male lead. Lin Shi looked so emotional he nearly lost his balance, so I instinctively stepped forward to support him. At some point, Vincent Hale had already ended his meeting and walked into the living room. The moment he saw us standing close together, his entire expression darkened. He strode over immediately. What are you doing? Who is he? Why is he holding my son, standing next to you and carrying luggage into my house? Then he lowered his head toward my neck, his expression turning even worse. You disappeared for this long. Were you planning to run away with him? His voice carried obvious dissatisfaction. You don't smell like me anymore. For a split second, his reddish eyes sharpened into something almost beast-like. He was genuinely angry. As a pure Earth human, I couldn't sense pheromones at all. But my cat immediately jumped away, and even the Omega I was supporting trembled slightly. At that point, even I realized the atmosphere had become dangerous, and if I didn't calm him down quickly, the one who would suffer later would definitely be me. An angry alpha wouldn't care whether my back, or anything else, could survive the aftermath. Meanwhile, alpha-omega couples were biologically compatible by default. Their entire world practically encouraged this kind of pairing. Wait, calm down first. I quickly helped Lin Shi stand properly on his own before turning back toward Vincent Hale. Then, in front of everyone, I wrapped my arms around him and rubbed against him lightly. Can you smell your scent on me now? My choice instantly soothed him. Not enough, Vincent Hale muttered quietly. I still want to mark you. Don't get greedy, that's rude. And I'm already embarrassed enough. In the end, Vincent Hale only left a faint bite mark before finally calming down. A house with 3 people in it was far too crowded. At any moment, it could turn into a battlefield. Vincent Hale immediately frowned. He's staying here with us? I don't agree. Lin Shi instantly retorted. Then why aren't you going to work? If you leave, then only Alex and I will be here together. Vincent Hale wanted to throw Lin Shi out. Meanwhile, Lin Shi looked at me pitifully with wide eyes. Caught in the middle, I nearly crushed my phone trying to contact Vincent Hale's mother. Finally, the call connected. Alex, what is it? Madam, please explain things to them yourself. On the other end, she spoke calmly. Vincent Hale, Lin Shi is an honored guest. Be more accommodating. And Alex, don't worry. Vincent Hale is just talking nonsense. You two should get along well. In the future, the families still need this marriage alliance, and eventually there'll be children. We'll all be family. Vincent Hale immediately objected. I already have a son. Lin Shi panicked too. I'm not giving birth. But Madam Hale ignored both of them completely. All right, that's enough. I'm busy. The call ended with a beep. The 3 of us stared silently at each other. Finally, Vincent Hale spoke first. The master bedroom doesn't welcome him. Lin Shi immediately countered. I'm scared. Alex, can you sleep with me? Each of them grabbed one of my hands, glaring at each other across me like rivals in a drama. I struggled to speak through the pressure. Stop it! This household desperately needed someone capable of restoring order. Lin Shi will stay in the room next to the master bedroom. I picked up Lin Shi's suitcase and led him upstairs. Rest first. I'll order dinner later. Lin Shi's cheeks turned slightly red. That's not necessary. Outside food isn't healthy. Oh, the delivery's for me, I replied calmly. There's no housekeeper here. If you want food, you can cook yourself. While Lin Shi unpacked, I quietly slipped back into the master bedroom to gather my things. Vincent Hale had already ended his meeting early and returned to the room. The moment he saw me sneaking around with clothes in my arms, he narrowed his eyes suspiciously. What are you doing? Taking clothes to Lin Shi? No, I'm moving downstairs for a few days. A few days? He frowned immediately. Why so suddenly? It was sudden from the beginning. I pointed toward the bed. Stop standing there. Help me carry that pillow downstairs, too. By now, I'd completely gotten used to bossing Vincent Hale around. Honestly, he deserved it. Is this because of Lin Shi? He asked. Strangely enough, his mood seemed to improve instead. Then he declared confidently, You're jealous. Yes and no. There was no way I was going to become that oblivious roommate character from those ridiculous romance novels. Vincent Hale grabbed my pillow and refused to hand it over, looking at me with ridiculous sincerity. There's actually a simpler solution, he said. We can just make our relationship public. No. I met his gaze seriously. The story already has a set path. I want to do my best to stop it from going completely off track. Alex, want to eat. Lin Shi walked out of the kitchen carrying several dishes that looked and smelled amazing. I made 3 dishes and soup, perfect for the 2 of us. The moment the food hit the table, I felt like half my soul had already followed Lin Shi into the kitchen. Eat more, Lin Shi said gently as he placed food into my bowl. You're way too skinny. Does Vincent Hale normally not let you eat properly? Try this too. Sweet and sour ribs are my specialty. At the dining table, Lin Shi enthusiastically kept adding food to my plate, while Vincent Hale sat silently at the head of the table drinking nutritional supplements with a dark expression. Then all of a sudden, Lin Shi froze mid-motion. His cheeks had turned slightly red at some point, and he looked annoyed. Vincent Hale, he complained. Control your pheromones a little. This is a public space. Vincent Hale replied coldly. This is my house. Then his gaze sharpened. And you should control your pheromones too. Don't let them stick to other people. He paused meaningfully. I normally don't bully omegas unless... The atmosphere instantly filled with the smell of impending disaster. I quickly raised my head from my rice and jumped in to mediate. No talking while eating. No talking while sleeping. Then I looked at Vincent Hale. Your condition's almost better now, right? Be a gentleman. There's an omega in the house. After dinner, everyone returned to their own rooms. At midnight, the sound of my doorknob turning suddenly woke me up. Still half asleep, I vaguely sensed someone sitting beside my bed. Before I could react, something soft and cool brushed against my lips. The shock instantly woke me fully. It was Vincent Hale. "What is wrong with you?" I was just about to start yelling at him, but Vincent Hale suddenly leaned down and kissed me again. "So nice," he murmured quietly. "You haven't kissed me for 2 days. I'm starting to forget what your scent feels like." "I can't sleep." I stared at him in disbelief. "If you can't sleep, why are you waking me up? Count sheep or something." "These past few days, I got used to sleeping while holding you." Then he looked at me with obvious expectation. "Can you let me stay tonight?" In the end, I still softened. I lifted the blanket slightly, allowing him to climb in beside me. "Last time," I warned sleepily. "This is a bad habit. You need to fix it." Half conscious, I muttered quietly, "What if someday I'm not around anymore? Are you just never going to sleep again?" Vincent Hale immediately tightened his arms around me. "Don't scare me," he whispered. "Now I'm definitely going to lose sleep." Life with 3 people under one roof actually wasn't that different. At most, it just meant I now had another person enabling my lazy lifestyle. Lin Shi was polite, funny, and surprisingly talented. Not only could he cook dishes from my hometown, but he also knew massage techniques. Sometimes my face would swell a little after waking up, and Lin Shi would immediately start pressing around my cheeks with practiced hands. "Massage this pressure point here," he explained seriously. "It helps reduce swelling faster." "That feels amazing," I sighed happily. "How do you know so much?" And every single time, Vincent Hale would watch from nearby with an increasingly jealous expression before coldly ordering me into the study to listen to his meetings. In reality, he just wanted to keep me where he could see me. Seriously, how stingy. I didn't like Omegas romantically, and I certainly wasn't trying to ruin anyone's destined relationship. Yet Vincent Hale still treated me like a threat. Not long afterward, Vincent Hale finally got restless enough to return to work, and unfortunately, he insisted on dragging me back to work with him. The moment I woke up early for work again, I cursed him at least 10,000 times in my head. That morning, Lin Shi had just reached out to massage my face again, when Vincent Hale suddenly walked by and casually pulled me away. The oppressive capitalist boss I remembered so well had officially returned. "Move," he said coldly. "If we're late, I'm deducting your performance bonus." When we sat in the same car again, the atmosphere felt completely different from before. 2 days ago, we'd still been kissing softly in the middle of the night. Now we had somehow returned to our cold superior and employee relationship. The entire situation felt unbelievably awkward. What even were we now? Was this just my terrible luck? Before, I could still comfortably nap during the ride to work. Now I sat stiffly against the car door, desperately trying to maintain the distance of an entire galaxy between Vincent Hale and myself. Judging by his current behavior, he had probably fully regained his senses. 7 years had passed. The story had finally begun. And I, the irrelevant background character from the prologue, was probably about to make my exit. Quietly, I started planning my move again. "What are you thinking about?" A knock suddenly sounded against the car window beside me. I looked up to find Vincent Hale crouching outside the open car door, leaning so close that we were practically within kissing distance. I instantly retreated half a step backward before awkwardly escaping through the opposite car door instead. "Nothing," I replied quickly. Then, to make myself seem normal, I deliberately answered in my usual chaotic style. "I was just thinking about what to eat after work." Vincent Hale's tone immediately turned colder. "Is Lin Shi really that great? You're still thinking about him during work hours?" At first, I nodded absent-mindedly, but the more I thought about it, the more appealing the idea became. Living with Lin Shi meant delicious food, massages, no early work hours, and most importantly, peaceful sleep. Honestly, it sounded wonderful. So I smiled sincerely and answered again, "He's pretty great." "Humph." Vincent Hale puffed up angrily like an offended pufferfish before storming off. He stayed unusually irritable for the rest of the day. Even his assistant secretly asked me 3 separate times whether Vincent Hale had actually recovered yet. Looking at all the medical data, I nodded heavily. He's definitely recovered. The assistant stared at me with the disappointment of someone watching a hopeless idiot. That evening, I failed to eat Lin Chi's recreated Sichuan dishes because Vincent Hale suddenly had to attend a business dinner, and naturally, I was dragged along as the accompanying doctor. While Vincent Hale socialized among the crowd, I found myself completely useless, so I quietly hid beside the banquet table and started eating everything in sight. Then my teacher suddenly appeared and stopped my locust-like destruction of the food. "When are you coming back to the lab?" she asked. "Mrs. Hale is looking for you. There are also some contracts you still need to sign." I thought for a moment. The day after tomorrow. Vincent Hale's leaving for a business trip then, and I don't want to go with him. "That works." She nodded, then lowered her voice near my ear. "Alex, you know alpha-omega pairings are basically irreversible, right? Especially for an alpha with pheromone instability syndrome like Mr. Hale." Of course I knew. What I didn't know was why my teacher was acting so strange today. "I'm not stupid," I replied suspiciously. "Did something big happen at the lab recently?" "Nothing." The more someone tried to hide information, the bigger the news usually was. Just as I was about to pressure her for answers, Vincent Hale suddenly appeared out of nowhere, grabbed the back of my neck, and dragged me away. "We're leaving." Vincent Hale didn't call a driver tonight. He drove personally. Honestly, it was strange. He never drank at business dinners and barely ate at home either. Was he trying to starve himself to death? The moment we got home and I reached for the door, Vincent Hale suddenly pulled out a bottle of scent-neutralizing spray and aggressively sprayed me with it. "What are you doing?" He frowned uncomfortably. "You smell strange." Then he stared at me seriously. "Why doesn't my scent stay on you? We were clearly close this morning." "What?" I looked at him in disbelief. "I'm not an omega. Stop being weird." Vincent Hale suddenly leaned closer, eyes fixed intensely on the unmarked skin near my neck. "I'm serious," he murmured quietly. "Just let me bite you once." No. I immediately scrambled into the back seat like my life depended on it and opened the Notes app on my phone. Signs of marking behavior outside a sensitive period. Recommendation: immediate medical examination required. Another exhausting medical report completed successfully. Ever since Vincent Hale's sensitive period ended, I hadn't returned to the lab even once. The moment I arrived, my teacher handed me a thick stack of documents. "These are the laboratory termination agreements. Sign them, and your contract here will officially end. As for the separate agreement you signed with Mr. Hale, the Hale family said they'll arrange for someone to steal it and forge a replacement. Regarding compensation, you can decide the amount yourself." I stared at her in confusion. Why? Was this really how the background character exited the story? Honestly, it felt ridiculously sudden. My teacher only sighed. "Go inside. Mrs. Hale wants to speak with you personally." The moment I entered the room, the elegant woman was already sitting there calmly drinking tea. "Alex, sit down." She gestured gracefully before speaking directly. "We're both intelligent people, so I'll keep this brief. The Hale family will never accept a beta without a reproductive cavity. Vincent Hale is far too attached to you right now. You need to leave. If you're unsatisfied, you may ask for more compensation." Then her tone cooled slightly. "But I should warn you, other members of the Hale family are nowhere near as gentle as I am." I could only stare at her in confusion. "You're mistaken. Vincent Hale was never attached to me. He's just seriously ill." After taking the money, Mrs. Hale even thoughtfully prepared a plane ticket for me and advised me to go as far away as possible so Vincent Hale wouldn't find me. Honestly, setting aside my extensive experience reading Running Away with the Child novels, just the fact that I had no pheromones at all already made me nearly impossible for him to track. I didn't even return home to pack my luggage. Mrs. Hale informed me that someone had already delivered my belongings directly to the airport. What I absolutely hadn't expected, though, was that the person who stole the contract for me was actually Lin Chi, and apparently he was some kind of hacking genius, too. As he handed over the documents, Lin Chi smiled lightly. Just a small, insignificant skill. Then he looked at me quietly. "So you're really leaving?" After a brief pause, he added softly, "When you come back someday, could you consider me first?" I stared at him blankly. "Are you sick, too?" Lin Chi burst out laughing. "Come on," he said, picking up his suitcase just like the first day we met. "I'll leave with you." The scene felt strangely familiar, almost like we were eloping. "Where are you going?" I asked cautiously. "Back to the Lin family," he replied calmly. "Relax. I'm not following you." Mrs. Hale had booked me a flight to the most densely populated country possible. More people meant more mixed scents, perfect for hiding. Unfortunately, there was no way for Vincent Hale and me to properly say goodbye. And once I left this time, it would probably be forever. Overnight, I exchanged currencies, changed phone numbers, switched flights and bus routes, and even rode the kind of rural motorcycles that were almost impossible to trace. If Vincent Hale could still find me after all that, then I'd seriously be disrespecting the absurd number of zeros written on that check. I spent nearly half a year hiding out in the countryside. By the time another harvest season had already passed, I finally couldn't take it anymore. According to the original novel, the plot should have progressed rapidly by now. Vincent Hale was probably already living his perfect alpha-omega romance life, which meant returning now should have been completely safe. So I secretly bought a plane ticket overnight and quietly returned to the outskirts of City A. You know the saying, the darkest place is right under the lamp? There was no way they'd expect me to come back here. The moment I stepped out of the airport, I ran straight into familiar faces. Vincent Hale stood at the center of the crowd, dressed entirely in black. Behind him stretched an overwhelming number of people, and farther away I could even see yellow security barriers. Behind me, the airplane door closed with a heavy thud. For a moment, the entire airport fell into terrifying silence. Vincent Hale blended almost completely into the dark night around him, as though he had been waiting here for a very, very long time. The instant our eyes met, I saw him silently mouth my name, and somehow, in that moment, I realized something. Even if I disappeared into a sea of strangers, there would still be someone in this world who remembered me. Pretending nothing was wrong, I glanced around guiltily before awkwardly greeting everyone. "Long time no see? Wow, everyone's here today?" Vincent Hale stared directly at me. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Then he took a step toward me. The people behind him instantly became tense, as though preparing to rush forward at any moment. In reality, none of them dared interfere. Vincent Hale walked all the way up to me. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Then, in full public view, he calmly clicked a pair of handcuffs onto my wrist. Meanwhile, the entire crowd behind us watched shamelessly like spectators at a drama. Vincent Hale lowered his gaze toward me. "Are you coming with me willingly?" My eyes immediately darted toward Mrs. Hale nearby. The moment I saw her exaggerated expressions and frantic signaling, I instantly understood what my generous sponsor was trying to tell me. So I immediately acted along. "No, let me go." Suddenly, Vincent Hale gripped my wrist tightly. Only then did I notice the collar around his neck flashing an alarming red light. Mrs. Hale instantly rolled her eyes at me from behind him. I changed my attitude immediately. All right, I'll go with you. I'll go anywhere." Vincent Hale looked at me coldly. "Too late, liar." The next thing I knew, the world spun violently as he hoisted me straight over his shoulder and carried me away. In front of an entire crowd of witnesses. Not a single person came to save me. Only after Vincent Hale left did the red warning light finally fade, and everyone present visibly let out relieved breaths. The house had returned to exactly how it looked during Vincent Hale's sensitive period. The clothes scattered across the room had all been dragged out again and spread messily across the bed. The only difference now was the addition of several square monitoring devices mounted on the walls, all used to track pheromone levels. Vincent Hale placed me carefully in the center of the bed, before pulling off my jacket and setting it neatly at the foot of the mattress. Then he buried his face into the fabric and let out a relieved sigh. Finally complete again. And my soft, warm wife is back too. Like a starving wolf that had finally reclaimed the prey it had spent months searching for, he refused to let go of me for even a second. Exhaustion left my body limp, and I leaned weakly against him. Vincent Hale lowered his head against my shoulder, trying over and over to leave his scent on me. "Don't bite. It hurts." Maybe my voice was too quiet for him to hear. Or maybe he simply couldn't stop himself. For alpha-omega pairs, a permanent mark symbolized a lifelong bond. Once completed, neither person could ever truly separate from the other again. But no matter how hard Vincent Hale tried, the pheromones never stayed. My body rejected and metabolized them far too quickly. Again and again, he stubbornly repeated the attempt until he was completely exhausted. The fact that he couldn't leave any lasting trace of himself on me clearly drove him nearly insane. Why? Half conscious from dizziness and blood loss, I weakly leaned against his shoulder. Through my blurry vision, I noticed a faint green light flashing. It seemed to be coming from the collar around Vincent Hale's neck. "Stop. It really hurts." Only then did Vincent Hale finally snap back to reality. Blood stained his pale lips and skin, making him look terrifyingly fragile. "Don't fall asleep," he said hoarsely. "I'll call the doctor." "I'm sorry. I won't do it again." When I woke up next, I was back in the ICU. This time, things seemed even more serious. Countless tubes and medications surrounded me, while machines hummed steadily beside my bed, their rhythmic beeping echoing through the silent room. 17, 18. Somewhere beyond the glass doors, I could see a large crowd approaching. After half a day of examinations, I was finally transferred into a regular hospital room. Almost immediately, I reached toward my shoulder unconsciously. The healing skin itched unbearably. "Don't scratch it." Vincent Hale gently caught my hand midway. "This medicine helps prevent scarring. I'll apply it for you." "Okay." I looked at his exhausted face and frowned slightly. "Shouldn't you get some sleep? You look terrible." Vincent Hale rubbed his tired eyes and shook his head. "It's fine." Then he added quietly, "I need to keep watching you. They hid you from me before. If you disappear again, I might never find you another time." Why was he searching for me so desperately? That question started haunting me again. What exactly were we supposed to be to each other? Everyone knew background characters were never remembered by the protagonists, and yet Vincent Hale had never forgotten me even once. For the first time in my life, this insignificant side character started feeling troubled, and I decided it was better to cut things off cleanly before they became even messier. After all, in Alpha Omega stories, fate always corrected itself eventually. Time healed everything. So I forced myself to speak calmly. "I didn't get lost before. I hid from you on purpose. Mrs. Hale paid me too much money. We're not compatible." Before I could finish speaking, Vincent Hale suddenly covered my mouth with his hand. His eyes were red. The desperation inside them was almost heartbreaking. He didn't say a single word, and yet somehow, he had already said everything. "There's one more examination left. Family members, please wait outside." I was wheeled into a completely sealed room. Inside sat several familiar people. Every important supporting character gathered together in one place. Mrs. Hale was the first to break down dramatically. "Alex, I'm so sorry." My teacher adjusted the reports in her hands and sighed. "I usually don't encourage people to separate, but honestly, you seem almost allergic to him." Lin Shi stepped forward quietly. "I know another beta," he said softly. "There's an island he mentioned before, crowded, highly developed, very far from City A." Then he looked directly at me. "If you want to leave, I can help you disappear." My teacher flipped through the medical reports again, her expression growing serious. "You should really consider our advice carefully." Then she looked at me helplessly. "You're honestly the most underdeveloped beta I've ever seen. Almost like a primitive human. Even small amounts of pheromones are enough to put your life at risk." I couldn't help laughing softly. They really had worked hard trying to explain everything scientifically, carefully investigating every possible result until they arrived at the most reasonable conclusion. But the truth was much simpler. It wasn't an allergy. My body simply couldn't process such high concentrations of pheromones fast enough, causing acute organ failure instead. And that reality proved one thing very clearly. Vincent Hale and I were fundamentally incompatible. After a long silence, I finally spoke. "I need a new identity." No one noticed the necklace against my chest beginning to glow faintly green. Suddenly, a violent crash sounded from outside the room. "Don't agree to them." Vincent Hale's voice slammed against the door from the other side. "If you're allergic to me, then I can remove my glands. I'll find another solution. 1,000 solutions if I have to. Please, just wait for me a little longer. Don't give up on me." The shouting gradually weakened, as though someone had finally dragged him away. I looked toward the others anxiously. "How bad is his pheromone instability syndrome now?" "He's already been out of control for several months," my teacher answered quietly. "Special personnel are monitoring him now." I turned toward Mrs. Hale. "Then, what are you going to do?" Mrs. Hale lowered her eyes. The Hale family would never allow Vincent Hale to remove his glands. Then, after a pause, she admitted softly, "Actually, the family hoped you would stay beside him, just like during those 7 years before. As long as Vincent Hale remained stable, that would have been enough. But eventually, you still would have had to leave." Before anyone could say another word, boom, the door burst open. Everyone scattered instantly, leaving only me, the injured patient, halfway through attempting escape. Vincent Hale stood in the doorway. He looked frighteningly thin, his clothes stained with blood. one arm bent at an unnatural angle, while the red light on his collar reflected against the tears gathering in his eyes. He looked like a wounded stray abandoned by the world. And suddenly my chest hurt unbearably. I wanted to hold him. How had things become like this? Back when I first met Vincent Hale, he'd still been a proud young man fresh out of adolescence, bright, untamed, and full of life. The protagonist I'd liked at first sight. Without realizing it, I walked toward him, and just as naturally, I fell into his embrace. Wrapping my arms around his neck, I covered the flashing red light on his collar with my hand. "Can you calm your pheromones down?" Vincent Hale held me tightly. "Yes. As long as I can feel you beside me. My pheromones lose control because of you. And calm down because of you." Then quietly, almost like a confession he had carried for far too long, "I love you." And finally I understood. We had both fallen long ago. I somehow became the oversized accessory permanently attached to Vincent Hale. After losing me once, he had clearly developed severe abandonment issues. Wherever he went, he dragged me along with him. By the 10th time I was forced to sit there and accompany him during his shower, I finally snapped. "Are you done yet?" Vincent Hale glanced back at me innocently. "Not enjoyable to watch?" Objectively speaking, it was extremely enjoyable. Water slid slowly down his toned body before disappearing beneath the edge of his towel. Unfortunately, the more seriously I looked, the longer he took to finish showering, and my legs were already sore from sitting there waiting. "Hurry up," I complained. "I want to lie down." "Just one more minute." Later that night, the room glowed beneath warm golden light. Our shadows overlapped against the sheets, while quiet breathing filled the silence between us. Vincent Hale rested his forehead lightly against mine, his voice low and gentle. "The first time I saw you, I already wanted you covered in my scent." Then he smiled faintly. "Did you ever go into my basement? I deliberately let you discover that room. It was filled with your photographs, all kinds of them, your clothes too. But you were always too obedient. You pretended not to notice anything." His fingers brushed slowly through my hair. "You were always so clean. Anyone who met you wanted to leave traces of themselves behind. So every day I made sure you carried my scent first. I wanted everyone to know you belonged to me." I stared at him blankly. Meanwhile, Vincent Hale looked completely calm, as though confessing to secretly collecting photos of someone for years was perfectly normal behavior. "And you," he continued softly, "acted like nothing was wrong every single day. You smiled so easily that eventually I started thinking maybe life could continue like that forever." Then his gaze deepened. "But now, I want more than that." He leaned down and kissed me gently, pulling me closer into his arms as the warm light quietly filled the room around us. Everything slowly began getting better. The powerful suppressant developed by the laboratory was eventually given a much gentler name: stabilizing support agent. With the new medication, Vincent Hale's pheromone levels finally became stable again. That same year, my teacher published her research in a top academic journal and even appeared on the news. This research originally began because of what seemed like an insignificant social phenomenon. She explained during the interview, some cases simply appeared more extreme than usual, which attracted our team's attention and led us to investigate further. Humanity has evolved for millions of years, but one thing has never changed: our desire for love and connection. Compared to ancient humans, modern people simply possess more obvious pheromones to express emotions such as joy, anger, attraction, and affection. Of course, aside from instability during development stages, healthy adults naturally possess the instinct to control their pheromones. She paused briefly before continuing. "And those who cannot suppress them. In ancient records, there was another name for that. It was called falling in love." After extensive research and observation, our team ultimately arrived at a conclusion that feels both classical and strangely new. Then she smiled toward the cameras. "Love exists above pheromones. In other words, once someone chooses you, even their instincts will respond only to you." Whether that conclusion was absolute truth or not, I was willing to spend the rest of my life proving it beside him. Turning my head slightly, I pressed a soft kiss against the corner of Vincent Hale's lips. The next second, the pheromone monitoring collar around his neck immediately flashed an alarming red warning light. And surrounded by that ridiculous warning glow, we leaned into each other quietly, smiling as though neither of us cared anymore. End.